Introduction. Welcome to another quiet journey into the past. As you settle in, let your breath slow, your shoulders drop, and the noise of the day begin to fade away. Tonight, we will travel to a world where the air was dry and endless, where the horizon shimmered with heat, and the nights were as cold as the stars were numerous. A world where faith, ideas, and people move not quickly, but steadily across one of the most iconic and misunderstood routes in history. But with the weary, with the ordinary, with those whose feet pounded the sand day after day, leading animals far more stubborn than majestic. Let the slow rhythm of ancient footsteps guide your mind as we begin with segment 1. You are not a merchant, not a prince. You are something far less celebrated, a camel tender, and sends tiny grains of dust skittering across the dry-packed earth beneath your sandals. The sun is still low, but already the day is hot. This is the story of the Silk Road, but unlike stories of kings, warriors, and empires, we begin not with the powerful. Imagine yourself there, in the dry vastness of Central Asia. Wind tugging at your robes, sand biting at your lips. So, close your eyes if you haven't already. One loose rope and precious goods could tumble into the desert, lost forever beneath shifting sands. Segment 1. Why it sucked to be a camel tender? The merchants may strike deals and calculate profits. The guards may brandish their spears. Sips, not gulps. The skin of the water skin is rough against your lips. And if you're lucky, a bit of dried meat. It's hard to chew. You eat in silence, crouched behind a dune, stealing what little shade there is before the caravan moves again. You listen to the sound of the camels shifting, groaning softly in the dark. Their outlines are hulking and strange in the moonlight. The occasional scorpion under a stone, but more often, it's the small missteps that do the damage. A twisted ankle, a cracked water pot, a lost path in a sandstorm. Sometimes one rises unexpectedly, unsettling the whole group with a lurch and a grumble. The water inside is warm, almost the temperature of your own mouth, but it's something. There is no moment truly your own. Even the nights, though quiet, come with their own share of discomforts. The wind turns cold. Every bolt of silk, every spice, every carved figurine and scrap of parchment owes its journey to your trudging steps. The sand clings to your bedding. The stars, so vast and piercing, seem to stare through you. But none of it matters without the animals. And the animals, well, they don't move themselves. The wind has already been blowing for hours. It whistles through the coarse fabric of your tunic, tugs gently at the edge of your headscarf. The camel snorts. Again, you've lost count of how many times this one has resisted the lead rope today. It smells strongly of sweat, of age, of... Cameland has developed a habit of turning its head just enough to breathe directly on you. One not of camels and heat, but of scrolls and silence. From the dry wind of the desert to the whisper of turning pages. But it's your job, and so you walk. Step after slow, measured step, one foot into the sand, then the other. The gait of the caravan becomes a kind of heartbeat, soft, repetitive, and numbing. You are one of the least regarded figures in this grand procession, but your role is essential. Without you, there would be no forward movement. Your job is one of vigilance. The camel's hooves must be watched for stones and sharp debris. Their pace must be monitored, their loads checked. The monotony is deceptive. It masks a thin layer of danger. You are always thirsty. The water is rationed. The food, flat, dry bread, maybe a few dates. The desert offers no privacy. You lie with your head on your bundle, not a pillow. There are always whispers of danger. Bandits, snakes. No one celebrates a camel tender. You are not painted in murals. You are not praised in poetry. You are, at best, functional. And yet, this route would not exist without you. And still, you wake before the sun. Again, you tie your headscarf tightly. Again, you coax the camels into line. Again, and the desert stretches out in front of you like time itself, and changing, demanding, and endless. With this rhythm in mind, we now travel to a different rhythm. Let us turn to segment 2, and the story of a monk who dared to walk further than most. Segment 2. The journey of Xuanzang. The year is 627. CE. The Temps dynasty is young, yet already vast, its borders stretching, its cities humming with poetry, art, and philosophy. But far from the imperial court, in a quiet monastery, one man contemplates something far beyond his tranquil cell. His name is Xuanzang, a monk, and soon a wanderer. The story of Xuanzang is not a tale of battles or kings. It is a journey of quiet resistance, of study. So much walking, he is troubled. You see, Chinese versions of Buddhists, scripture, those imported and translated over generations, inconsistent, some are incomplete, others contradict one another, and Xuanzang, in his calm but determined way, is not content with confusion. He believes the truth lies in India, where Buddhism began, and he decides, despite imperial law, forbidding such travel, to go there, alone, no caravan, no guards, no diplomatic escort, just a monk, a robe, and an iron determination. He slips away in the night. The cold gnaws at his breath. He nearly dies of thirst. The heat bakes his resolve but does not crack it. The road is merciless. He crosses the Gobi Desert, where the wind howls and the ground is more bone than earth. Then come the mountains. The Tian Shan range rears up in front of him like a wall of frozen time. He climbs, slowly, carefully. Thin shoes. In Samarkand, he debates scholars. In Gandhara, he finally begins to see the original texts he had only ever known in fragments. He walks for months, then years. But he does not simply move forward. He studies at every stop. He learns. From every teacher, he asks questions. In Khotan, he spends time in monasteries. And then his return to China is not triumphant, but quiet, respectful, deeply revered by those who understood what he had done. After nearly 4 years, he reaches Nalanda, one of the greatest centers of learning in the ancient world, a place of scrolls, of firelight, of gentle conversation, and vast inner silence. He stays there for over a decade. Think about that. His story inspired legends including the famous novel Journey to the West, where he appears as the monk Tripitaka, traveling with the Monkey King. He did not come as a conqueror, nor as a guest. He came as a student, and he stayed as a scholar. By the time Xuanzang prepares to return home, he carries with him over 600 texts, hundreds of relics, and a lifetime of memories pressed between the lines of parchment. But he doesn't rush. The journey back takes years. He stops in towns, pauses in temples, teaches, translates, and debates. In total, his journey lasted 17 years. 17 years. On foot, across mountains, deserts, foreign languages, and shifting borders. But his legacy, eternal. His translations became the foundation of East Asian Buddhism. His writings shaped centuries of thought. But the real Xuanzang, he walked alone. And in doing so, he connected worlds. As we leave behind this quiet scholar and his scrolls, we now shift our gaze to the sands again, not to walk them, but to wonder what lies beneath them. Let's move gently into the mysteries of lost cities and buried civilizations. Segment 3 begins now. Segment 3. The lost cities of the Taklamakan Desert. The name Taklamakan has always held a certain hush, a name not shouted, but murmured. In the old tongue, it is said to mean, "Go in, and you won't come out." And so it waits, the Taklamakan Desert, one of the most unforgiving landscapes in the world. Dunes rise like waves, shifting slowly over centuries. The wind moves with a dry sigh, lifting grains of sand and memories with equal care. But beneath those sands lie cities. Once, the Silk Road forked here, 2 paths north and south skirted, the desert like travelers afraid to wake it. And along those paths, civilizations bloomed briefly, like desert flowers after rain. Nia Lulan, Miran, Dandanulik, their names are now strange, almost but once, they were outposts of trade, faith, and fragile survival. Let's begin with Lulan. Merchants paused here to rest, refill water, and trade goods with locals, but then it vanished. Located near the now dry Lapnor Lake, Lulan thrived for centuries as a key stop for Silk Road travelers. But swallowed, the lake dried up, the wind came, and the sand covered what was left. Depictions of serene Buddhas, open-palmed and smiling, beneath flaking walls and broken beams. By the 4th century CE, Lulan was gone. Not defeated in battle, not buried in ash. Others fell to overuse, their fragile water tables tapped too often, and some simply faded as trade routes moved elsewhere, leaving them to decay in silence. And now, the sound is wind. It wasn't until the early 20th century that European explorers like Sven Hedden began to uncover what the desert had taken. Walls, tools. Archaeologists have found wooden tablets, covered in ancient scripts, letters, legal disputes, family inventories. Please send more flour, one might say. Another, I am still waiting for your reply. These voices frozen by sand and time. Cities that survived, adapted, and became crossroads of power and luxury. Texts written in a mix of Chinese Korosti and Tocharian, a language long extinct. Further east lies Moran, once a Buddhist stronghold. Its ruins include beautiful frescoes, bright pigments surviving against all odds. Imagine an oasis once alive with chanting monks, the creak of camel harnesses, the splash of water from a deep, cold well. Nia, to the south, gives us even more intimate glimpses. Why did they vanish? Some were undone by climate change ravers, shifting, oases drying, rain no longer falling where it once had. There's an eerie kind of peace in that. No last battle, no fire, just the slow, inevitable breath of the desert, reclaiming what was never truly held. And what remains? Faded frescoes, crumbling, a child's shoe, a wooden comb, a letter never sent. They're reminders of how fragile permanence truly is, and how much of human history, like so many stories, is made not of endings, but of quiet disappearances. As we leave the drifting sands behind, we turn now to the oases that didn't vanish. Let us continue to segment 4, a place of wealth, poetry, and quiet diplomacy. The story of Samarkand begins now. Segment 4, Merchant Princes of Samarkand. Imagine waking up to the sound of linen banners fluttering in the wind, the scent of roasted almonds and spices drifting through the air. Camels shuffle in the distance. You're not in a tent or a stable. You're in a palatial house of carved wood, behind walls painted in lapis and gold. Others from Persia, Byzantium, or even further. But here is where their goods, their stories, and their ambitions met. You are in Samarkand, the gem of Central Asia. By the time weary caravans reached this oasis city, many had already traveled for weeks. Some came from China. Samarkand was not built on conquest. It was built on commerce. And behind its whitewashed walls and domed mosques were people known not for swords, but for ledgers. Instead of fortresses, they had contacts in every direction. And instead of knights, they wielded favor, language, and logistics. These were the merchant prince's elite families who held no crowns, wore no armor, but ruled with silk-threaded fingers and multilingual tongues. They spoke Sogdian, Chinese, Arabic, and Greek. They traded paper for ivory, spices for jade, gold for glassware. They were rarely known by name. Their homes were hubs, part mansion, part warehouse, part embassy. Their wealth, not ostentatious, but vast. A merchant prince, adjusting his robe, sealing a contract with a man from across the mountains. The famous ruler Tamerlane made it his own, building mosques and observatories. But even he relied on the merchants to quiet power behind the bustle. It became part of empire after empire, but never truly lost its identity as a place of influence, beauty, and survival. Their tables featured food from 3 continents. Their floors were tiled with geometric precision, their walls lined with painted myths of winged horses and cloud dwellers. Instead of war horses, they had scribes. They sponsored caravans, advised local rulers, and mediated disputes between travelers from faraway lands. Their children were educated in Zoroastrian temples and Buddhist monasteries alike. By the hands that loaded camels, copied texts, guarded wells, and counted coin beneath flickering oil lamps. And yet, history favors kings, but trade favors the discreet. By the 9th century, as the Islamic world expanded and Turkic tribes migrated, the Timurid dynasty later elevated the city into a glittering capital. And so, as we close our eyes in the quiet hours of tonight, picture not a battlefield, but a slow deal being struck under lantern light. No violence, no fanfare, just the clink of coin, the scrape of ink, and the ever-present hum of a city that never needed to shout. Closing thoughts. From the windswept steps of the camel tender to the silent scrolls of a Buddhist monk, from buried cities swallowed by time to the merchant palaces of sun, we've wandered through a world of sand and sleep, of forgotten effort, of quiet power. The Silk Road was not built by it was built by the footsteps of ordinary people. And now, your own journey is done. Let your breath settle like dust. Let the stories fade into quiet silence. Let sleep come. Good night.